Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of RGDS, your retro gaming discussion show. Yes, it's me, your host, Paul Driscoll, aka the Drisk, and joining me is the one, the only, it's Kingy. Yes, Gordon King. How are you, matey?
I wish I wasn't the one and only. I am the one and only. I'm a
You're definitely one.
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. Yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, up to me eyeballs doing the book, but we'll come to that in a bit.
Aye, indeed.
But yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, so as you've probably seen by the cover and the title, in today's shows we're going to talk about the often maligned machine, the add-on peripheral, the Sega 32X, and some of its games. In fact, I think we'll probably mention pretty much all of them at the end, but we've singled out 6 games worthy of encapsulating the sort of like game library that were unique to the system as opposed to arcade ports. But before we dive into the show itself, let's say what we've been up to retro-wise or gaming-wise. What about you, Kingy?
Okay, well, I did say it on probably, I think it was the last episode we were on, I was going to go for pinball, digital pinball version 2.0. Well, did I not only go and do it, and I'm chuffed with the final product. Actually, today I was adding some more things to it, just trims and edgings.
Does look good. Well, you'll have to look on our Discord, isn't it? You've shown.
Yeah, well, I am going to make, and I did promise, as of discussion on the last episode, I was going to make a video about it. I would have loved to have made the whole, time-lapse thing, and me making it from scratch and whatnot else, but when you're a solo player in that sense, you can't record yourself and chuck things in corners, so it was never going to be, because your mind's focused, you know what I mean? It's like you're single-minded on the project and so forth, but it's complete and I'm dead happy with it.
It looks wonderful. Yeah.
I will do a little video, I will record it, and then I'll strip it down a bit. I'll take the monitor off it and let everyone see the innards and explain exactly what I've done. Now, from version 1 to version 2, version 1 was very simplistic. I had a very basic computer inside it. It wasn't even graphic handling. So I had to set like Pinball Arcade, what's running on it, and it wouldn't even run FX Pinball at all at its lowest settings. And it still looked very pretty, and it worked fine. I had to use, at that point I used an Xbox 360 controller that I stripped open. It was a broken one. They had, the standard drift faults on the analog sticks. So I took them out and piggybacked mapped buttons, if you want, then to controller buttons. This time around I bought a bespoke board and soldered it, wired it to all the buttons and configured it and other boring things like that. But this time around as well, I included the extra buttons. So you've got your flipper buttons left and right, but below them is nudge left and nudge right. So rather than
whack it,
rather than whack it and do the tactile thing as you would do in the pinball table, well, let's simulate that with just extra buttons to do that. So I've got a left and right tilt, and it works actually really well. So I was really pleased off the outcome of that.
It makes sense to do,
I also put an amplifier inside the thing and big ass speakers on the side and really cranked the volume up. So awesome. It's got the whole thing. Because I've got access to a laser cutter, I raster etched. I used AI art for my sins to create some kind of black and white vector art of sort of, retro wave pinball kind of imagery. It looks like tattoos on it, so it's etched all over it. It looks fantastic. So I'm really pleased with the outcome. Yeah, I'm pleased, mate. So a video will come soon, I promise.
That's good. No, it really does look good. And you seem to knock it up really quickly. It seemed very quick. If you saying you're going to do it, it's done. And
it's
complete.
Funny that, because one of our listeners, Richard Jordan, he was busy making a mini arcade, bar top thing for himself. And he spent a number of weeks in it. And within a week,
You're throwing it together. Yeah.
I'd thrown it together within a week. I've become very focused on things like that, Paul. Right?
Yeah.
It then becomes an obsession, and I'm from like morning to midnight work,
Working on
stuff
it.
like that.
Well, sometimes you have to do it, don't you? To I mean, coming on to my stuff, this Amiga books. I've nearly completed it now. I've done the main book. It's and that's 2 books.
Yeah, you're waiting on the arseholes doing their secondary comments, aren't you?
Well, yes, I didn't like to say, but yes. No. To be honest, I've got the final section to do, which is I thought it'd be fun to do, like some of the best ofs per genre. Like my own list, just small summaries like you used to get back in Amiga Power back in the day, where you get like little box outs with a little text, and that's coming on quite nice. But also I've managed to get, because I didn't want it just our viewpoints, so I've gone to some of the people I really sort of like, we really sort of respect and like in the retro community, for Amiga specifically. And yeah, we've had quite a few people sort of like respond. So far we got Kim Lemon of, I mean, she needs no introductions.
Yeah.
She's given some contributions, and Gebs24, she's given some fantastic interesting suggestions, and Sam Dyer of Bitmap Books fame. Of course, I used to host them back in the day in Retro Asylum, and he's given some contributions as well. And Mads and Steve also, still at Retro Asylum, have also given. And there's a couple more which I'm really hoping. I don't want to. They're the ones that have actually given the contributions, but I've asked some others which have said they'll do it. But you know what it's like, real life and all that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, but it's coming on really well. I'm excited to share it with people.
Well, I mean, for me personally, obviously because we're doing, Rick and I are obviously doing mini reviews of the top 40, if you want, on it with
50.
your own.
Hated to break shit to you.
I said 40, it is 50, it is. Damn. I
don't want you missing out 10.
I should know. No, I won't miss out 10, I promise.
Mr. Pinball Wizard Boy.
But this is pretty comprehensive, this, and it's such an enjoyable read. I'm just lucky. I love seeing, proto versions and early versions of things, and as it morphs and develops, and it's fantastic. It's going to be, if you love the Amiga.
Well, even if you don't love the Amiga, because I think,
yeah.
Well, no, I think the thing is if you're new to the Amiga, it's a great way of like hearing some of the best, because I think with our list, for the most part, we've tended, yes, there are some arcade conversions and things like that which you couldn't avoid, but there is a lot of original games that really only were on the Amiga. So I think it's a great introduction with that. But not only that, is you've also got the history element where I've said who made the games, and I think that's fascinating because a lot of these people went on to make some massive games. These companies went on to do huge games on the PlayStation and still active today. I mean, many of the beloved games of today, this is where they started out. And I think that's well, maybe not everybody's interest, but to me that's really exciting to see this was their beginnings in a lot of cases, and this is what they went on to do. So I think there's interest for everybody there, but hopefully they'll like it. As I say, it's free. It is a huge project. I keep having the meme of was it, we do this not because it is easy, but because we thought it was easy.
Yeah, indeed.
And that's been running through my head quite a bit doing it, because it's been a major piece of work. Anyway, should we go on to the main show itself?
I think we should.
Yeah. So, right, okay, so we thought we would sing the praises of the Sega 32X. Now, for those who perhaps don't know what this was an expansion device that you would plug into the top of your Mega Drive. Came out on the 21st of November 1994 for £169, so it was quite a hefty add-on. And it's quite a bizarre time, because if you think about it, in that very same month, the Sega Saturn was released in Japan. So it did cause a lot of internal pushback. I mean, if anybody's read the Console Wars, you get very much a sense how Sega of America would like to say, what the hell are you doing, Sega of Japan? What are you doing releasing yet another product line along with the, because you had your Mega CD or Sega CD, and the 32X and a new console, the Sega Saturn, and we still had the Game Gear, which was the handheld. It was just very confusing times, really. And it was codenamed Project Mars. But I think it's worth it, because it's interesting, because it has such a short life cycle, because it didn't really do very well, and, you know, it was superseded, really. Everybody would just saved up a bit, like double the money, and got a new console. You know, why, or got the PlayStation. Why would you try and give life to something that really, you know, the Mega Drive had seen better days? And so there's only 40 games that ever got released on this console. But because of that, and because quite a few of the games are interesting, it's really popular with collectors. It does go for a lot of money, because it didn't sell that well. And collectors are really drawn to it, because 40 games and you've got the entire set, and you know how like collectors love to complete sets and things. Yeah. But you know, I've always loved Sega, and I do have I never owned a 32X back in the day, but I have had it subsequently. But I did know someone who did have like a US 32X in the UK, and so I did get to experience quite a few of the games firsthand. But I mean, before we go into like the games itself and a bit more, I mean, what's your memories and experience of the 32X?
Well, my good mate Rab, he was a huge Sega fanboy, completely, right? His life started off with the Atari 2600, and then the Commodore 64, and then he migrated across to Sega, and Sega is still his most beloved company of all time. I mean, he still, you know, goes back and plays all of the games, whether it be Dreamcast, the Saturn, or Mega Drive, or you know, he's just a fan of it. So he had the whole Frankenstein setup of the Sega CD and the 32X. I mean, it was a hideous thing.
Oh, it was a monstrosity, wasn't it?
Well, put it this way, you know the average, you know, corner TV unit where you'd have your TV sitting on it, and there'd be a space for a VHS player. That was your average height that you had in that unit. This beast could not fit in that little space underneath the TV, so you had to be inventive and cram it somewhere on a little, you know, one of this, a little table in front of it, or something like that.
And plugs everywhere. There was about 3 plugs, wasn't it?
It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, what I enjoyed was his passion for it. I mean, I was always a Nintendo boy, coming down to his house and playing the games on it. So he didn't get that many games for it. He had more games for the CD. But in terms of the 32X, he had the Star Wars trilogy, he had Doom. Everybody got Doom for it. It's like if it could run Doom, you'll have it for it. I'm trying to think what else we played on it.
Yeah, the Star Wars Arcade, wasn't it?
Star Wars Arcade. Yeah. Sorry, not Star Wars Trilogy. Sorry,
I wish it was Trilogy. That would have been very cool.
Even better. And because he's like, he needs to get Afterburner and Space Harrier. And
they were
like
amazing. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
We were
so
excited for.
These are the kind of games I was exposed on. It was just giving you the best exposure to the arcade equivalent at home, and I was very impressed by what it was able to do. I didn't personally, I wasn't really looking forward, because I had, at this point, I suppose, I was holding on dearly to the Amiga. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, I'm not interested. I've got a computer. I like computer gaming, not console gaming. You know, you're in that mindset. You're being a knob, basically. And but to come down and see this kind of thing in his house was absolutely enjoyable. I mean, it was hideous. There's no denying that, hideous looking. I do not like Sega controllers at all. In general, I hate the Mega Drive controller. The three buttons, A, B, and C, beside each other. No matter what, even now playing it, whether it be an emulation or you've got a mini for the Genesis or playing the real hardware, I hate A, B, and C next to each other. It just seems so far apart. And I suppose I was just so used to the
Well, you're just a SNES boy, weren't
yeah,
you?
the whole diamond shape of the buttons in close vicinity of each other. And even now, even though you can go into games and say, well, you can change A as jump, or A can be attack, or you can change that in most of the game settings. No matter what setting I put it on, and I found this right through playing the games on this one, that I was still pressing the wrong bloody buttons. It's just something shitty.
It's just what you're used to.
Janky,
I mean, I was always fine with that. I mean, I loved the Sega Saturn controller is one of my favourite 2D controllers of all time. Of course, that was basically the Mega Drive version with a few bells and whistles. But clearly the Diamond one ultimately won out, wasn't it? Because that's what everything after these consoles went to.
For sure. But ultimately, though, I actually really enjoyed playing it for the slightly added fidelity and the hybrid of 2D meets 3D graphics. Sometimes they're combined in one game, which I'm not the biggest fan of. It's either, to me, I like it, it's either one or the other, but that's fair enough. But I don't have a problem with expanding lifespan of a console. If you look at me from a Spectrum perspective, okay, I suppose you had RAM packs, right? Okay, it's just giving you more memory, so that was an add-on. But the 128K on the 48K was really just a very slight evolution, albeit not an add-on to make your 48K better. But they didn't really jump. It wasn't a paradigm shift in technology, was it? It was just making the Z80 work a bit more bang for its buck, and I think this is very similar of the 32X, to be honest.
Well, it was quite a step up. I mean, in terms of it was giving quite a bit of 3D power and stuff, but of course it was held back by the original hardware, as any system add-on will be. But I mean, the biggest problem was by the time it came out, as I say, it just didn't make sense, because you had the Sega Saturn, you had the PlayStation out at that point, pretty much.
Which could do that.
Which was definitely a leap up. So, why would you pay quite a considerable amount, 169 quid? Why not just double that and get yourself the truly the next generation rather than... I mean, I remember thinking, well, it's clearly not going to last. With all of these sort of systems. I mean, and the Mega CD was perhaps more exciting in concept, because in your mind it gave an awful lot more, with the CD and things, which, the reality is it didn't really improve gameplay or anything. It was just, as we've quickly found out, but, I mean, because of course that gave a little graphical boost as well to things, like Mega CD games had not just the sound, but you would use a little bit of extra hardware and colour and things like that, wasn't it? So, a strange time for Sega, but I am glad. And of course, the beauty is in today's world of emulation, you can emulate all of these machines. And to be honest, that's probably, unless you're willing to have like the Frankenstein monster of everything. Although at least you can buy special retro cables. That means that it's like a splitter. So, you only have one cable coming down and one plug, rather than the traditional 3 plugs. That I don't know if you remember as well. The plugs were designed where they took up 2 spaces, so you couldn't even do like a 4-way. You had to like,
I never
it was
actually
so
had to
well
wire it.
thought
I just
out.
accepted
Yeah.
it for what it was. So.
Yeah, but anyway, so we go on to, we've chosen 6 games, haven't we? And
we
we'll
have
mention
indeed.
with some of these. And I think, I mean, I tried, because it was me choosing this time, wasn't it, with the game? So I take the blame. I tried to choose ones from the rather small library that we hadn't covered before. So, Star Wars Arcade we had covered before, so albeit not the 32X version. So I decided that we would leave that on the cutting room floor, and the arcade ports, as great as they are some of the best titles.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the arcade, and to be honest, in the vast majority of the of ways, there's no real advantage to play it on the 32X. Star Wars Arcade probably being the exception. There is like a 32X mode, which gives you extra stuff. But I think we've chosen 6 really interesting games.
I think
here.
so, yeah.
Varying quality. Some didn't hold up as much as I fondly remembered. So we'll go through them in alphabetical, shall we? Yeah, we'll do alphabetical.
Yeah.
So, are you ready then to go to our first game? And the first game is Amazing Spider-Man Web of Fire. Came out in 1996, so quite a late release, and it's published by Sega, and it was developed by Blue Sky Software. They're probably more famous for the Vector Man games on the Mega Drive, and I'll mention some of the games that some of the people did, but this is one that I had very fond memories. It's one that I did play back in the day. He had a US, it was only a North American release, but he had it, and it did seem at the time that it was quite a revelation in terms of it. It was the first Spider-Man game that I personally have played where I felt a lot more like Spider-Man than you had previously. Right. You could do your web swings and do the continual web swings, or web swing to web swing, to make your way across the levels. You could do like some of the climbing. I hold my views going back at it now, but I mean, what did you think of this game?
This is new to me. Hadn't ever played this before, but you have to, not come in with modern eyes. If you come like that, then you're going to come into a failing here. But I think I'm there with you. I mean, I do generally like most Spider-Man games, whether it be on the Atari 2600 right through. I've played Spider-Man games all my days, to be honest, and some a bit more hit and miss than others. I really particularly love the PlayStation 1 ones.
Oh,
they're incredible. But I got a lot of fun out of this, to be honest. I liked, well, first of all, it really felt like a kind of New York background more than any other particular one I played in from this period, you know what I mean? And you're right, I think the whole jump web swing action where he attaches to, you don't know what, right? It's up there, it's beyond the screen. Right, you don't care about what happens up above the monitor. Could be your ceiling in your living room or your bedroom or wherever you play your games. Who cares? But it works. It's got a great swing action game. The only downside to it now is I don't really enjoy the fighting mechanic that much. It tries to make it a kind of Streets of Rage like beat 'em up in that respect, but I just don't find the impact and the fluidity of the fighting is is all that great. I tend to more fire the web on them to make them trapped and then beat them up where they're restricted. But hey, that's me. The only thing I'm not really a fan of is the mix of 3D and 2D on it. So there's some things that are sprites and some things that are rendered. And I don't, especially the kind of, the golden robot things that fly about.
Yeah, they look quite poor, don't they?
They do look quite poor. You don't really need that. I've never been a fan of that kind of mix. Even the Abe's Odyssey games on the PlayStation years was a bit like that. As much as I like the game, going back and you look at it now, that mix of... It's like they don't know what they want it to be. They're holding on to the clutches of how games used to be made, but they've got this 3D ability now and they're adding this into it as well. But that's just a visual thing. It doesn't affect the mechanics of the game, which is still really quite enjoyable. And I think the levels are very varied on this game to give you quite a bit of satisfaction that you're not just playing this kind of repeated beat 'em up type game. I think it still reasonably holds up. It's not the greatest, but it's still very good.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing it with modern eyes. I was a little bit more disappointed because I had such fond memories of this, just purely because it as I mentioned, it just felt like Spider-Man. There really hadn't been a game that I'd seen that made me feel like Spider-Man when playing, and I mean, I agree with everything you sort of like say. You've got your web, your web fluid, and you can pick up. So there's two pickups really. You've got your web fluid and obviously your health. They're the two things you have to worry about. But it's cool, I mean, not only can you use it for web swinging, but also you can fire out like a web bolt, and that will like not kill the enemy, but tie them up and capture them. That gives you the time to go over and give them a good sort of punch in the noggin, and and take them out. It is. I mean, it took a while to get used to the controls. I mean, one of the things you'll be seeing with some of the footage here, I had Charlie came over, and I took the opportunity for him to play as well as me, some of these games. So he had a stab at all these games that we're covering. And it took us a little while to get used. We kept doing the wrong control at the wrong time. But it might have been this was the first game of the day, and we were all a bit half asleep when we were playing. So that explains the footage. But yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those, once you got used to the controls a bit more, and I began to see some of the worth of it.
Right.
But I'm with you. The graphically, it looks out of place today, isn't it? The sort of like pre-rendered sprites, they just look quite murky and lack of detail, which didn't bother me back in the day, but certainly did going to it now. I think at the time you just weren't so bothered by things because it was like kind of cool. The other thing worth noting is Daredevil, who you rescue. He's a special character that you can bring.
He's your smart bomb in this game, isn't
smart
he?
bomb. Yeah.
And you can rescue him from his trapped cages to earn an extra smart bomb in it, so wherever you explore in the city. But no, I'm quite impressed. I do love as I said, the whole kind of Brooklyn, New York background. It looks really good. It's still got a vibe to it. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. That you're playing a Spider-Man game, and I think they do capture the spirit of Spider-Man quite well, because I think he's a very video gameable, if such a word exists, superhero more than most others. Batman's made a good transition as well, of course he has. But there's something about the whole Strider-like climbing off walls, isn't it, that really works
so well.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. I mean, that's the trouble Superman and things have always had, is because like
he's a god.
Have to die.
Yeah.
With a Spider-Man, you sort of it just kind of works. And I love also that at the end of each level, when you defeat the end level boss, you get like the the Daily Bugle.
Yeah, the newspaper cuttings, yeah.
headline. Yeah, sort of like Sony the front page of like Spider-Man destroys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for this, if you go, well, what gives me more difference between this and say this was made for the Mega Drive? And it's always the same. The first few levels necessarily don't really show the game off. It's later on when things are all on fire, right? The factory, the refinery is all on fire, and the whole warping, orangey, burnt backgrounds. It looks really fantastic. This is where the game comes into itself, and I just wish they think, well, I
should have put these at the beginning, isn't it? To
yeah,
draw them in.
yeah, absolutely, and it doesn't quite do that. So you need to persevere a little more to see beyond what you think. Oh, it's just Spider-Man. I've played this kind of game before. The Inferno type levels, as hinted by the title Web of Fire, becomes more, pyromaniac like, if you want, levels sort of free and onwards, and it looks pretty fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. So on this one then, would you say it's a hit or a miss?
It's definitely not a miss. But just say a hit. Well, it's a finite list, as you said, the 40 games.
Yeah.
So I think so. If you were going to, it's a hit. It's definitely a hit.
It's a hit. Yeah.
It's got some weaknesses, but it's a Spider-Man game, and I do love a good Spider-Man game.
Yeah. Well, you might be interested that the people that made it. So you had Jerry Makoto from Sega, but the Blue Sky guy, Jerry Huber, who's the producer, he did Vector Man, and in the arcades he did Iron Man Stewart's Super Off-Road.
All right.
As the programmer. Now the lead programmer on this was Brian Belfield. Now he was the key programmer on Neverhood and Skull Monkeys that we love so much.
Yeah.
And he went on to do EverQuest 2.
Well, there we go.
And then you had Kevin Freyhate, who sort of like he did the programming on the Vector Man games, as I mentioned, which if you never played them, they're like a 3D using that same sort of ugly pre-rendered view, but it kind of works a little bit better in Vector Man because of the nature of the graphics. And he also did the Mega Drive versions of the Jurassic Park games. You know, the ones that were not the ocean one, but the side-scrolling one.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting game. Of all of them, this was the biggest disappointment in terms of my fond memories of it, and actually playing it without, with modern eyes. It was a bit of a shock because in my head it was so much better. But I think partly because I was also mixing in the Mega CD version of Spider-Man as well, which is also fantastic. So I think I sort of somehow merged the two in my head. But fond memories of this one. Cool. Fond memories. Right, so we go on to our second game then. So this is an interesting one. This is Kolibri. Basically a shoot 'em up done by the Echo team, and you play a hummingbird basically, and it's very, very strange. It took me ages to get. I mean, when you first play it,
oh jeez,
you're like, what the hell am I doing? I mean, both me and Charlie, because I couldn't remember. I have played it in the past, but I couldn't remember. And we were flying around forever ever on the first game, and it ended up, because we're too lazy to actually read the like the manual. We eventually got got a video of somebody playing it, a walkthrough, just to see what the hell we had to do. And you have to go into that flower, isn't it? Go past the frog, and there's a flower, and then you have to like get the nectar from the flower, and that starts the whole game.
What it kind of conveys is everything is all in well in the equilibrium of nature, and your sole hummingbird must be like the run to the litter, because all the other hummingbirds are occupying the nectar giving flowers, and not allowing you near them. It's like they nudge you off, piss off, you little runt, you're not getting anywhere near this. And then you find this solitary flower, and then you get it, and then the game opens, and you can spit the fruits if you want, or whatever you want to call it, spit the nectar, because it is, as you said, a very fresh take on a shoot 'em up. And what you have is insects like wasps and that are creating an imbalance in nature. So there is this very environmental, as you said, Echo the Dolphin kind of lesson to be learned, if you want, and think about the balance of nature and so forth, and create a video game adaptation of that. And I think this is a very unique take on a conventional
once you get past all of that, it's quite engaging, isn't it? Really, I mean, it's I wouldn't say it's a classic,
no,
but it is. I preferred it a lot more than Echo, which I've never gone with Echo. And this is, as I mentioned, it's the same team. This is what they went on to do. Vast majority of them, and as I say, graphically it's beautiful, isn't it? With waterfalls and very naturalistic.
Completely sprite driven, this one, isn't it? So
yeah, completely sprite driven, and you get a nice range of power ups, because you can get the power orbs dotted around, and it gets quite frantic, really, at times. And the idea, as you say, of shooting out to basically reconstitute all the flowers to colour them back in, isn't it, for your hummingbird chums, is quite engaging. I mean, it did get quite middling reviews on its release. I think a lot of people saw it as quite a generic shooter hidden behind some pretty graphics. I think that's a little harsh, but that's what
I would say that as well,
say.
personally.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I prefer games like Apidia and things on the Amiga that similar sort of like naturalistic viewpoint. But it's certainly an interesting game once you get through quite a few levels. You sort of get into it a bit more once you understand what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And as I say, visually it looks absolutely stunning. There's so much sort of like depth to all the backgrounds, and you really feel you're in a sort of a wooded area with beautiful waterfalls and things like that. It's quite nicely done.
Yeah, and the kind of parallax scrolling goes on with it. You've got your main fixed background and then the foreground, and there's so much excellent detail to the spritemanship of all the graphics in the game that I think, it's a bit niche. That's probably what I'm trying to think of. But at the same time, I get what they're trying to do to be a bit different with the shooter genre. It's not just a horizontal scroller, it's not even vertical. You can, for many ways, you can choose your own pathway, can't you?
Try to find the way. Tackle whichever flowers you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
And take out the enemies. Yeah.
I think it delivers well. The music's really beautiful as well.
Yeah,
to
really
be honest.
nice music.
Considering we're not on about CD quality music here, it's compressed music, but it's crisp, it's clear, it's very moody as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, this is new to me as well, and I was very surprised with it. But that was my instant, before I knew anything about it, my first notes were, this is Echo the Dolphin with hummingbirds, but well, clearly it is.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, same team. But I mean, yeah, when you first play it, isn't it? I mean, I was, for ages I was thinking this is like Echo the Dolphin because there's nothing solid to do because I just lost. But yeah, once you realise that flower, it's actually this is. I'm
I
starting to
don't
get
really
it.
understand the point of that introductory level, to be
No, it
honest.
just confuses, doesn't it? I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I think that's a bit. It's a bit. Well, there's no hints. There's no
Well,
direction.
that's all it needed, wasn't it? It's just a flat. It's just a little arrow to tell you what you needed to do. Just to say, or a description. Go to the flower that is here. It is a map or something.
Because you see every other hummingbird happy flying around all the others, very similar flowers. Okay, there's a whole bush
Yeah.
of them. It's like, okay, I'll go down there and I'll nudge you and knock you out the way. It's like, all right, that's right. I can't shoot, and you're convinced, am I doing something wrong? And is the buttons working?
Yeah.
Is it working right? And you check everywhere. You go to the top right, top left, bottom. It just in some random central kind of place where it's like, well, that was a bit pointless, but it opens up the game, and fair enough. And then, okay, you get the hang of the hang of the whole thing. So
Yeah.
no, I was impressed by its graphical detail and its attitude to be a bit more novel and a bit different than any other game. It plays like no other game, so hats off to it for that reason.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of wanted to sort of like shout it out because it's a unique one. And that is what was kind of nice with the 32X games, particularly when it uses 2D, is that it really was the last vestige of. I mean, obviously you got the odd game here and there on the PlayStation and things which embraced just 2D graphics.
Yeah,
but
your
with extra
Raymans and
hardware,
whatnot. Yeah.
many of which we covered, which was lovely. But this the 32X was one of the last vestiges of that. I mean, this could never really be on the Mega Drive. Not this level of detail and amount of sprites and special effects going on. I don't think the Mega Drive could have done
No,
it.
it's just a little bit too much, isn't it? And it shows. It does look beyond the Mega Drive. I mean, it is a beautiful looking game for the graphics alone. And in different locations, there's ones that look like more like in Africa, if you want. And then there's sort of cave areas. And
Yeah, it's Aztec, isn't it?
yeah. So it is varied for the player's eyes. It goes from more nature to more when mankind starts taking over. So you've got a whole range, and it gives you a good sense of level progression because of that. And it's just, I don't know what it is. Maybe because the play area is so big, it's not just a fixed play area. Maybe you get a little lost in the 2D playing. I don't know. I don't know what makes it fail in people's eyes. I mean, it's hard for me to tell because it's a new game for me.
I'm glad you liked it because I was a bit worried when you started to play it. You were like, "This is so boring." And, oh no,
Yeah,
he's gonna hate the games I'm chosen.
But I persevered,
So, yeah.
and then I got a bit more
You
out
got
of
it,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I got it and understood the game.
That's kind
Yeah.
of how I was, to be honest. I mean, it was one that I dabbled with. I mean, this is not one that I remember back in the day. This is one that, those Voyage of Discoveries when on emulators and things
Yeah.
like that. But I clearly haven't spent as much time on it as I did for this episode because I couldn't remember how to do a lot of it. But it was a long time ago since I last played it, so it was good going back to it. Incidentally, the two sort of like lead game designers. Some of our listeners might know some of these games, but the first person is E. Ettore Annunziata. Now, he did things like Chakan, he was a producer on and stuff like that. But the things I particularly remember, and obviously Echo the Dolphin, but the things that I particularly love is his Sega Saturn days after Kolibri. He did Mr. Bones, which is a really... Have you ever played Mr. Bones, actually? Did we ever do it on the Halloween special?
We did, or what did we do it on? We did do it, and I remember playing it, but I just can't remember which one it was.
Yeah. It's I forget the guitarist, but it's quite a famous guitarist that's does all the music to it, and it's just a really weird sort of that same like rendered platformer, but it's got lots of mad, crazy ideas. It's unfortunately a really expensive game to buy on the Sega Saturn, but obviously there's other ways of doing it. Actually, just as and the other game that he did on the Sega Saturn, which I love, is Three Dirty Dwarfs. Have you ever played that?
No,
Three Dirty Dwarfs, because you love your beat 'em ups. Play Three Dirty Dwarfs. It's a really funny, hand drawn sprite 2D sort of like beat 'em up.
Is it dirty as the title suggests?
It's not that kind of dirty.
Oh, I'm disappointed.
It's more dirty. I'm gonna kick you in the knackers. Dirty, fighting dirty.
Oh, it was what's his name? My mind's come back. Montrose, Ronnie Montrose. Was that no?
Yes, that's the one who did Mr. Bones. Yeah, the guitarist. Yeah. But anyway, actually, just as a side, but that's what we do.
As we do.
Yeah, I'm quite excited with this. I was watching a YouTube video, and I think it's Matt the Pixel did it. It's a US guy, a YouTuber, but he was saying about. I'm quite excited for this. It's basically you can order it like from China, but basically it's a complete real Sega Saturn. Like the hardware, the real hardware, admittedly in quite an ugly box, so like a see-through, so you can see the actual hardware. I don't know why they've done it that way, but it's quite cheap. It's like only something like probably work out about with postage about 160 quid. But what it is, it's a Sega Saturn, but they've actually built in so it takes USB stick, so you can basically put any games and you're playing real hardware without CDs, and because of that, like when he was testing them all, like it's like pretty much instant loading, and it's got the extra RAM so it can do all the, and of course it's region free as well. So I was like, oh, I'm quite excited with that, because even how good emulation is, it's never been quite perfect on the Sega Saturn. So I might, if I'm feeling a bit more flushed, which I'm definitely not at the moment, I might try and pick one of those up, because they do look rather good. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, please do.
But because the Sega Saturn is such a special machine to me. There's so many wonderful games on there.
Yeah, you always praise it. It was your go-to at the time, where I was probably Sony. You were playing this, weren't you? So.
Yeah, but that's it. I mean, I was the Sega Saturn when everybody had a PlayStation. The Sega Saturn was my machine.
You're a bunch of zealots, you Sega boys. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, for me, the calculation was I can only buy one, and this one has Arcade Perfect, Outrun, Afterburner, and Space Harrier.
No brainer, says Drisky.
That was about as deep as my thinking went. And the other guy that worked on it was Joseph Molnar. Now he did, what did he do? He did Contra: Legacy of War. The PlayStation Sega Saturn one as well, but of course Echo the Dolphin. They pretty much the whole team did Echo the Dolphin. I won't go through the others, but it's overall I think it's an interesting Kolibri. Going back to Kolibri, it's an interesting, unique game. Because it only was on the 32X, I think a lot of people missed out on this wonderful machine. This wonderful game. Really, I think
the price it goes
worthy
for
of a play.
The price many of these games go for now. To be honest, it's
I don't know.
eye-watering.
I just I would never. This is just me. I'm not criticising anybody that does, but for me,
I will
Yeah.
personally criticise anyone that is fucking daft and and have more money than sense. If you're going to spend £300 on a game, think again.
Yeah. But yeah, if people want to, why not? I mean, I don't. Yeah, I would rather spend it on a family holiday, but then you got nothing to show for it at the end, isn't it?
Memories, my friend, memories.
Memories, that's true.
Memories of
That's
this
true.
game as well, I suppose, but
But yeah, no, to our listeners, it's an interesting, quite a beautiful adventure.
yeah, if you really do like
Quite a
really
shooter
good
adventure.
sprite work, right? Forget the game. Anyway, the game's fine. The game's totally fine. But if you want to be in awe of real quality spritemanship and beautiful backgrounds and atmosphere, and it's this game really gives that kind of feel to it, and I'm very impressed in the art of it. If you want.
Yeah, I mean the art was done by God. They got some weird names. I don't know actually which country these are all from. Zolt Balo is the guy.
Zoltan, is that not that
Yeah.
fortune telling machine?
Or is
and
it
big?
ZSOLT? I don't know. Zolt. That'd be a t, wouldn't it? But yeah, I mean they all did Echo the Dolphin. Basically, he did the graphics on Echo the Dolphin, and that was pretty much it, really. He also did Lost World, Jurassic Park on the Mega Drive. He didn't really spend that long in the sort of doing games, but yeah, no, it's a good one. I'm glad you enjoyed it and found something to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so we go on to the third one then.
What we got?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. This is Knuckles Chaotix, and it's a spin-off Sonic game that clearly Sega have a lot of contempt with because it has never ever appeared in any that I'm aware of any of their compilations. It is the bastard son that never ever makes it, never gets invited to the reunions. It was done actually. It was done by, although it comes up as Team Sonic. It's not actually the main team. It's actually the team that made Sonic CD game, which has some people love, some people don't. And it doesn't star Sonic. That's why it's a spin-off. It stars Knuckles, the I don't know how to say it, Echidna, isn't it? But the red spiky one, red hedgehog rather than Sonic Hedgehog. That's about as deep in my zoology. And then it's got the other cast. I mean, basically he's the red one that got introduced in Sonic 3. And it introduces some other characters which you do see actually have appeared in other spin-offs, like Mighty the Armadillo. He appeared in Sonic Fighters. Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon, and Charmy the Bee. They're the characters. But I'm going to pass it to you because I've sort of spoken about it. Do you want to describe to our listeners what is Knuckles Chaotix?
Well, this one is a more tethered Sonic game. And what I mean by that, you have a symbiotic partner who is bound to you by the Sonic rings by a kind of mystical elasticity kind of attachment. So in that sense, it slows the game down. Like anyone, you can play Sonic like you're on amphetamines and rush through the bloody game, but not collect all the rings and so forth. So speedrunners rejoice, you can do that in these kind of games. This game doesn't allow that kind of mechanic because you are bound to another person. So you can be up on another level and they're down below, and you have to figure out how to get them above, either pick them up and throw them up there, or swing them around in a kind of pendulum kind of swing to get them up there. There's switches to open block doors, so you have to, like, you can pause the character on one and stretch that, right? You do feel the kind of taut stretchiness, don't you, when your tongue's pursed on your lips, like pulling it along.
Right,
if you know what I mean. But I get why people may not like this game, but I really enjoyed this, to be honest. I played this one before. My mate had this, so I'm familiar with this one. Didn't get to play it a lot because we're more put on Sonic CD, like you mentioned there, previous, which I much more preferred. But I hadn't played this in such a long time, so I spent a good bit of time playing it, and I quite like the level design. It's vast, like most of these later days Sonic games have become. There's more on the up and down, you know what I mean? It's not linear. Now, neither was Sonic the Hedgehog, but there was limited pathways. As more time went on, these games, I think, personally, got a bit too big for themselves, a bit too vast. And, well, what were you collecting then? You had, these games then induce pathway anxiety in me, if that makes sense. It's like, I'm going this way, but I'm thinking, I wish I went the other way. And I don't like that in games when they do that, because you think you're missing out on bigger things. But in all honesty, there was no real hidden secrets in these games that you missed. It was just getting enough coins or rings, than anything else, and finding your preferred pathway. But it's still an enjoyable game. The graphics are absolutely beautiful. The backgrounds are brilliant. The music is incredibly fantastic. The characters are lovable, and you've got a variety to choose from. And you know it's a Sonic game. You know you're playing it. It just depends what you want out of a Sonic title. Does this do it for you when you're tethered to someone else that creates a restriction on you freely running because they are being, restricted from being behind you, or blocked in a wall or a pathway? You need to more think about it. So that's a personal choice. But as a game, is it a fresh take on Sonic? Yes, it absolutely is. It's not more of the same in that way. So hats off to it. So to me, it's a kind of 7 out of 10 game. I do quite like it. I like it better than some of the other Sonic games. I'm not really a huge fan of Sonic 3. I think it just become ridiculously big. Sonic 1 and 2 is where it is for me, personally.
Two's the pinnacle for me.
Yeah. But no, it's a nice touch to try and do something different. Does it work is debatable, and it is very subjective, I think.
Yeah, I didn't like it. It's, for me, I guess, I think it would have been all right, the mechanic, if it was like for a part of the game or something, but I just found it became frustrating, because every single time you're having to, I just couldn't, it never came natural to me. Maybe if I'd put in like sort of like, I don't know, 100 hours worth or 10, it would have started to become second nature. But I always had to think about doing the sort of like, because you have to like stop, stretch back, isn't it, and then you release at the right time to then sort of like get your speed boost.
It takes a while to get the hang of the mechanic, doesn't it?
It does, and it never became second nature to me. I always had to sort of like, I got better at doing it, but it just became frustrating for me. I quite like the bonus levels.
I was about to get on the bonus ones. They're quite varied, aren't they? This is where it shows off the 32X, because it becomes more 3D, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I found it. I find it bizarre that they've never ever put it on any of the compilations, because it would be a nice, when you've got all the Sonic games already, why not just include?
Well, why wouldn't you? It's a celebration of the whole series. Yeah,
I mean, clearly, maybe they just don't like the direction it took. Incidentally, I should note, just as an aside, there is a prototype leak called Sonic Crackers, which actually is this game mechanic, but using Sonic and Tails.
Yeah.
I think, as far as I can tell, that was the original idea, and then they thought, "Oh no, this is too much of a departure, and the antithesis of what Sonic is. So let's use a spin-off character."
It's such a silly notion, that, isn't it? Because for everything but the main character, it's a Sonic game. So if it's going to tarnish the series, really, would it tarnish the character by having him in it? I very much doubt it. But
No. I mean, it certainly didn't do. I mean, it's difficult to know whether it didn't do well because of the hardware it was on. Because obviously, by the time it was out, it was such a short life. I mean, it probably was one of the more popular titles on the 32X, but it didn't really move the units like they'd hoped.
Yeah, but it is. I would say though, despite gameplay and you debate the ideas in the game and the direction they took it, graphically, it looks absolutely incredible.
Oh, it does, and like the way you can suddenly like supersize your characters with power ups and things, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of cool. And like you watch like YouTubers that clearly put a lot more hours into this game than me, and you watch somebody that's learned and honed their skills to such a point where it's just all second nature.
They've got the fluidity back in the game. They play it like
it plays as fast as Sonic.
Absolutely.
With me, it's like it's painful. It's like stop, okay,
stop, start.
Yeah, start. And that becomes. Yeah, I don't like things that break up the fluidity of games like that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Of all of the ones, this was the one that I didn't. It was, for me, it was the worst game of tonight.
Really? Right. Okay.
And I know it was probably one of your favourites of tonight. So just so
It just shows you that's fine though.
Yeah, I mean it's and again, it's not a bad game. For me, it's not what I look for in a Sonic game. Personally, I think I love the fluidity and speed of Sonic. Yeah. So, yeah, it's any more you want to say about that one then?
No, I think we said what we need to say on it. I think that yes, it's divisive. I think that is a departure from the standard Sonic engine that people would be used to, but don't let that put you off. I think if you tap into this, appreciate the artwork in it and the daring to be different, I think you'll find a game in there.
Definitely. Right, so we go on to our fourth game then. So actually, this is one that I enjoyed the most of the evening. Actually, that was new to me. I mean, there's actually the last three were probably my favourites, and this one was Metalhead. It came out in February 1995. It's another one that I believe was exclusive to the 32X, done by Sega and published by Sega. It's a real simple concept, really. You're in a mechanized sort of walker type thing, like a Ed 209 type sort of like robot thing that you're in, mech suit, and you walk around a sort of small arena city environment, And really the general ideas, although it does get a bit more complex as times go on, is that you have to go and destroy all the other mechs and trucks and tanks in the level based on what the mission controls say. And you can see that there's a little overhead map, and it gives like yellow sort of like radar blips, like echoes, isn't it? Radar echoes showing you where they are.
Yeah.
You wander around and you shoot them. Very simple. I love the cheesy sort of like. I didn't get a chance to play if the Japanese one had like Japanese people and it looked a bit better, but the Western one, it's because it's got like a digital photo of where they've tried to animate the person so it looks like they're speaking, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite hilarious.
It's quite funny, yeah, indeed.
But there was just something about it that I just really enjoyed, just wandering around shooting the enemies. It's nice and simple. You can choose the type of weapons. You buy guns at the beginning, so you can. There's a nice variety, and you got that sort of like exploring. I mean, what did you think of this one?
I didn't like this game, mate, one bit. I
No,
did not
okay.
get any the reason being, one, I hate mech games. I just, something about them, they've existed really more so since the 3D era become prominent. Maybe more so in the Western market, that these are clearly obviously Japanese style games that it comes across, and it's just boring for me. I mean, it's a modernised adaptation of Battlezone.
Yeah,
For starters, yeah. Running about quadrants of city streets, though, so it's not just a very open playfield, but you've got your radar where you can find where you need to shoot the guys. You can change your weapons, and strafe as well, which is good. Good option on this. Didn't figure out how to, because I was playing it for the first little while and this is shit without strafe. You cannot play this without strafe. Why has not strafe been invented yet? I was getting really angry at it. And then I read the instructions. Oh, you can strafe. Okay,
You
I'll
can
take
strafe,
that.
yeah.
I'll take that back. And also if you're fortunate enough to have a 6-button joystick, there's more sub-functions on it as well. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of first-person shooters outside the classics. So obviously your Doom, your Quake, and games like that. As a genre, I have pretty much avoided, because these classic games gave me that thrill, and anything since then just doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? So playing these, it's like, okay, I'm running about streets, I'm shooting things, I'm getting commands in my ears by, headquarters, and it does nothing. Mech games are boring. They always have been.
Don't listen to him, dear listeners. This is fun. Charlie and me absolutely love this one. I think it was because it's just simple. There is some. I don't know. It's just watching the robots explode, and I don't know. It's just simpler times, and it just sort of.
Fair enough. I mean,
enjoyed with us.
Let's take it back a step. Minus my dislike for it. Graphically, for what the 32X engine is doing, you've got something not too far off PS1 graphics here.
Yeah.
I'll be honest about that.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't have the fidelity of PS1,
No,
does it?
but it's close enough. It gives you a good feeling of depth in the game, and it runs at a good fluid pace, so it has got that. The audio quality is very good, whether it's the music, the speaking, the missiles, the bullets. It's got all that kind of thing. I just found, no matter what level you were on the grid of the city, it just felt a bit samey. Okay, you're battling different mechanoids, but it just felt, I don't know, the same as going back to play anything on a city grid written back then. It's even, the taxi level in Die Hard 2, you thought it was great back then, you play it now and it's like, oh, this is a bit dated. They don't hold the test of time, certain things. So maybe if I played it back then, maybe I would have liked it a little bit more, but the whole idea being the mech suit never has done anything for me in that way. It doesn't work. It's just too much maybe I just don't really like overly futuristic games all the time, that it doesn't work for me. I don't know.
I mean, so as I say, the guy that behind this was Koichi Nagata. He probably most famous for the the home ports of Virtua Racing. He did the Virtua Racing Deluxe on the 32X and the Mega Drive version, and he also did Virtua Fighter on the 32X version. Probably he was also one of the producers on Panzer Dragoon Saga, which is like the RPG ones on the Sega Saturn days. So yeah, I mean, and he also did the RPG Dragon Force, which some people might know. Some Sega Saturn, quite famous RPG. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was just what I was looking for at the time. I'd be the first to say it's not the greatest game in the world or anything, but it's just, if you're after just silly, daft, short levels, make your way through, shoot things with a chain gun, and it's got a little bit of variety, like they do airdrops and things. So you're like, oh, run away, get away from the area. And it just was, I think, kind of what I was after.
Yeah, it is an arcade game.
It is an arcade game.
Yeah.
I mean, to our listeners, it's not an arcade game, but it's got the arcade game sensibilities.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I'm just clarifying, because people say you said it was an arcade game.
I can't find it on MAME.
No, I think it's a lot of fun, this one.
Yeah, but you and Charlie don't have taste, so that's clear. I mean, that's fine.
Well, at least we'll see. We'll do better luck with the next one. We'll see with the next one. Because the next one actually I really liked, but Charlie didn't. So we shall see what you think on it. Okay. So for the next game, in Europe and Japan it's known as Stellar Assault. In North America it's known as Shadow Squadron, and this is really cool. It's basically a arcade blaster. So you can either be like, it's kind of like those sort of like, I don't know, Star Wars arcade, isn't it? Where you're sort of like, but you have more freedom, you can fly around.
Yeah, not on rails or anything like that. Yeah.
No. And you can just shoot. Usually it's some of the impressively large ships. Watch it explode. Then you have like fighter ships coming at you. I really like this one. And let's say it came out in 1995, April, so it's an early one. You know, in the very short life of the 32X. I mean, they're all similar periods because it didn't last very long. But it's kind of what I enjoy from a space shooter. It's kind of simple, doesn't get too complex. You've got your two types of weapons, and it runs at an impressive pace. I mean, it really, you know, when you think for the time and the fact that this is essentially running on a Mega Drive with a weird black...
A weird butt plug stuck up his arse.
Stuck up his arse. It's amazing what it achieved. Yeah. I mean, what did you think of this one?
Personally, game of the episode, mate.
You loved it, yeah.
Absolutely loved it. Now, it always hides in the shadow of Star Wars Arcade, and there are parallels. Of course there is, right? But ignore... We're not going down... It's so easy to go down the Star... You can go down the Star Wars route with any console, to be honest, right? Yeah. This is absolutely fantastic. To me, this feels like the natural successor to 3D Star Strike. So if anybody played 3D Star Strike 2, right? And you had the different areas, different zones, and you zoomed in on them. And it was just a great intergalactic battle with a lot going on, with a little scanner flying about. But the best thing about this is the gorgeous polygons that are in this game. It does actually look like, in this way, more closer to kind of what the Polygon Amiga games look like. Right?
But it's kind of what I always wanted of the... you know, when you watch The Last Starfighter, which I used to love.
I was about to... You steal my freaking words.
Oh, sorry,
this is The Last Starfighter. This is what this is. Minus, you don't have the Death Blossom superpower weapon, right? This is what this is. It is exactly that, mate. It is.
Well, it's interesting you saying about the Star Wars reference, because you never guess what. So Koji Toshida did this. You never guess the game that he did beforehand.
Come on, then.
Do you remember when we played that obscure game on the Sharp X68000, the Star Wars Attack on Death
Which
Star?
was fantastic.
That was his game before.
Well,
This is what
then.
he did. He
This
went on
man-
to do Shadow Squadron.
This man knows how to make space games, and it works. It really bloody works. You know what I like about it as well? So you got the small ships you can blow up, but then you got the big freighters that fly about, and they are modular in their destruction. Right? They're made up of modular parts. You have to blow up the engine part. You have to blow up the cockpit, and they all blow up, and the whole ship doesn't destroy until you get to a certain percentage, I suppose, of how much you've destroyed. Oh, absolutely played this with a huge smile. I felt a bit, I don't know why, because it's quite crude in its graphics, but I just felt I was in space and was blasting things. It absorbed me, it sucked me in. I was convinced. I was just back to a younger version of myself, enjoying older games, and this is a delight. It is an absolute delight. And where's it been all my life? This is. I don't need better graphics in this, Paul. Seriously,
No.
right?
Well, it's interesting you say with that, because there is a sequel done by the same team on the Sega Saturn.
Saturn, I read that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically Stellar Assault SS Sega Saturn.
See, I was in the pub the other night, and there was some Stella Assault, but that was something different. But
Oh, back to the bad jokes. No, this is awesome. But yeah, my point is with this, the Sega Saturn version. I prefer this to the Sega Saturn version, because you're right. The extra graphics actually sort of that the Sega Saturn gives kind of makes you, for me at least, takes me out of the action. There's something about the simplistic polygon designs.
The lo-fi polygon design, which we've seen in many games, and we spoke about him. I referred to the Amiga there. With that, we've played some racing games like that, and there's something about that aesthetic that really appeals to me. I don't need any more detail of channels, grooves, circuitries. You know when you played wireframe Star Wars, right? It was representative of the Death Star, but the modern games, the Death Star was really complex with almost like mini cities, and you don't need that. It's just the smoothness and the roundness, and it's representative of something. Your imagination does everything else for you, and that's the point in this game. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. I really, you probably can hear how much I'm praising this. I'm going to go back and play this. This is a new favourite of mine.
Yeah, no, it is really good. But then clearly not for everybody, because like I say, Charlie just didn't enjoy this.
Charlie can get in the sea, right? That's as simple as that.
But no, I was with you. I mean, I was like, this is one that I want to go back and sort of play some more. It made perfect sense.
How about the intro at the beginning, where you go up the ramp and then through the time gate?
So cool, isn't it?
What do you want? Not the time gate. What do you call it?
The Stargate, isn't it?
The Stargate, yeah, to boost you into hyperspace. What a brilliant cinematic opening! It's absolutely superb. This is a good game.
This would have blown me away, if I'd seen it back in the day. I mean, it's one that unfortunately I hadn't. It's only years later, and then sort of catalogued it, which is why I knew it was one that I definitely wanted to include for tonight's show. But again, it's because you know what it's like when you do these sort of like Voyager discoveries. You try little morsels of the game, but you don't really like do the deep dive that we do when we play.
Yes.
So it was wonderful playing it properly, getting quite far with the levels. I'm like you. I mean, I want to play this a lot more. Yeah, really good. Great explosions as well.
Oh,
I love
fantastic.
All the sort of like the polygon explosions. Yeah. No, I'm glad you're on the same book with me. And considering how grumpy you can be with Sega games, we're doing quite well, quite good success. but we're on the final game, and I'm very intrigued what you think with this one, because this is another one that is very weird. It's very strange to our listeners, but I'm a huge fan of it. And it is Tempo. Came out in 1995 on the Sega Saturn 32X. That's where it originated. And I will say right off the bat, its designer behind it is Keisuke Abe, or Abe, Keisuke Abe. Now he's best known as the guy who invented Bonk, PC Kid, and this is one of the other characters that he designed in his illustrious career, and I've always had a soft spot for Tempo, and particularly its sequel on the Sega Saturn is another one. I'll let you explain it, because I'm always also explaining it. Do you want to describe it to our listeners if you can?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's an absolute gorgeous, and stunningly gorgeous 2D platformer where it's music orientated. I think you have to beat the Demon King that's stolen the music or something like that. I get a bit bored with the stories, something like that. But the whole game is musical orientated, and things are all rhythmically pounding to the beat of the music, and there's musical notes to collect and piano keys to jump on, and your little character Tempo just has to navigate these worlds, and it's absolutely gorgeous. You're talking, you'd think if someone showed you this, you wouldn't know it was on the 32X. You would say this is a Sega Saturn game straight out. I think you would say that. It's because of not just what's going on in the foreground, collecting all the musical notes and jumping and zip lining and kicking and punching. I mean, that's the best thing about it. You're not just jumping at people's heads. You got this lovely kick, or you can fire musical notes to stun them as well. So there's a bunch of sort of kind of fighting mechanics in the game, but it's what goes on in the background. All the
it's always
movement.
so much going on.
Yeah,
so much humour to all the characters. He puts so much humour in all the.
Yeah, absolutely love this. This is, I mean, it doesn't get. It's middling reviews, isn't it? That's what the game gets. For some strange reason. I think people get the reason why there's a lack of direction in the game. You don't know which pathway to take, right? And you're going, right, I'm here now. Where do I go now? I'm a bit lost. I have to go lower in, because it's not just left to right. It's a bit like the Sonic game earlier there. It's multi-pathway, if you want to call it that, but it's very surreal. It's very...
I love that power. So I just remembered the power up with you're saying surreal. The power up with all the flying cows and the
exactly this.
Because it is. We should note as well. It's sort of based on it's almost like a game show. So you're working your way through, but there's like a laugh track. And when you die, they sort of like laugh at you, and there's just so much humour in every single character, even just people that perhaps aren't enemies are just in the background. It's just hilarious, and you can there's a certain sort of pickup that you can get, and then you get a lady grass. I think they're grasshoppers.
Yeah, you are a grasshopper.
Yeah,
That's right.
And you can sort of like switch between the two. But it's just such a beautiful character, isn't it? So was this
incredible.
new to you then? Was this new to you?
Yeah, I'm aware of it, but never actually played it. So I don't know why. I just always looked at it. It was, well, it looks nice. I'll play it one of these days, and never actually did. So I'm glad I've been forced to play it. And I can't describe the quality and the graphics in this game as beyond anything of its generation, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a shame that it's sat on the Sega Saturn, really. Sorry, the 32X, because a lot of people just passed by on this gem, and you
Yeah.
know, of course, it is, and therefore the sequel, which I think is even better. There's two sequels actually. There's the Game Gear got Tempo Junior,
Did it? Okay.
and the Sega Saturn, which I love that version. If you've not played it, is only came out in Japan, which of course doesn't matter because it's just so batshit crazy. You don't need to be able to speak the language in a game like this. Yeah, but this is really impressive, doesn't it? It really shows you what the 32X was capable of. And it's a shame that Tace was so obsessed with 3D gaming at this point. But I love all the little dance moves as well. So many beautiful, like, because there's like a certain point you can do a pickup, or when you complete end level boss.
Yeah.
They do this little like dance move, you know, the two girls. This is, him and the girl, you know,
Yeah.
strutting their stuff. And it's just done with so much character, and little things as well. When you know that when you go to do the end level boss, you got that big tall bug. And he sort of like polishes your face, gets you all cleaned up, ready to
Yeah.
go on. Yeah.
What's interesting to me is when you've got the kind of parallels, when you've got the Sega CD at the same time as the 32X, right? And you go, well, this is a game about music in a music land, okay? So you would have thought naturally then they want to go with a complete fanfare, and this would have been produced on the Sega CD in comparison. But what it does on an audio chip by this point, which is a bit more hamstrung, if you want, because here is audio CD quality stuff coming out in the next generation, or currently with the Sega CD, that they opted for a music game to be on this. But in saying that, I think the sound quality doesn't sound compressed. It doesn't sound hamstrung. It sounds quite high fidelity. And it's really good. I mean, it's an unsung hero in the game, I personally think.
Yeah, well, this is it. It's one that nobody ever really talks about. And you say it's sort of let down by, for whatever reason, it did get very middling reviews across the board. And I kind of get it in as much as, I mean, it's no Mario in terms of level design,
No.
but so it's quite. But there's so much craziness and madness and characterization on all the enemies that it just melts your heart. You're just beaming ear to ear as you play it. And for me, that's why Tempo's always been a special game series for me. I think it's it just always, because it just draws you on. You want to see what the hell's what madness is it going to show you on the next level, and it doesn't disappoint. Every level is more.
It's got that kind of same surreal nature as say Earthworm Jim does by Shiny. You know, it's not off this earth in that way.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like, but it even goes crazier than games like Rayman or things like that.
Yeah.
Which, you know. It's just a beautiful game, and it's one that loads of people probably won't have played. And you say that the music track is awesome. Yeah. I mean, the one thing I would say, if you do play this one first. But if you do enjoy it and you do enjoy the craziness, give the Sega Saturn version a go as well, because I think it's. That's sort of adds the craziness, and it's doing a.
Did we cover that in that Sega one we did before? I start forgetting what we've covered now, mate.
See, I've got a feeling I've definitely covered it, but I've got a feeling it was with not when you weren't on.
Right. Okay.
And I've been sort of like, I think I've said to you on the recordings and afterwards, I've said play Tempo on the Sega Saturn, but so when we talked about doing the 32X, I'm like, right, I'm gonna draw him in by playing, forcing him to play the first Tempo, and then they play the Sega Saturn one. But so you enjoyed this one? That's good.
Very much
That's
so. Yeah. Second best game. I loved the space one because it was. I've not played enough of them, and this I mean, you know me, even my love for platformers. So these were the two biggest highlights. These two.
So your biggest highlights. So let's put them in order for you. Is there any more you want to say on this, by the way?
No,
before
no,
we-
that's good, mate.
So so your Tempo was your favourite.
No, Shadow Squadron's a favourite.
Oh, sorry, Shadow Squadron or Stellar Assault was your favourite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
Tempo.
Then probably Knuckles.
Yeah. Okay.
Then Kolibri, Spiderman, and Metalhead at stinking last, because that's a turd.
You really hated that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
For me, I'd probably So, I mean, although I loved Metalhead, it was because it was a surprise. But
Okay.
for the games, Tempo I think is my favourite. Stellar Assault is my second. Metalhead is probably my third because it was just such a surprise. Kolibri, then I think Amazing Spider-Man, Web of Fire, and then for me the
Knuckles
one that I just
in the
couldn't
top.
get on with Knuckles Chaotix.
Yeah.
But there you go. There was our 6 games. I think that's a really good sort of lineup.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, but let's just spend a couple of moments just talking through some of the other games. We'll just give brief mentions of them, and then on the video version of the file, I'll be able to sort of give little clips as well to sort of describe them. So let's go them in sections. I'll just rattle them off, and then you can jump in when you want.
Sure.
Okay, so there was a fantastic range of arcade ports on the 32X. You had Afterburner Complete, which was an amazing, it really was, up until the Sega Saturn release of Afterburner, it was the closest you could get to the arcade. It really is. It was so above what you could do on the Mega Drive at the time. And I remember that there was so much excitement between that. And do you have memories of that one? Or
Yeah, that was my mate Rab. Because he was a huge arcade fan. Obviously, us being on the doorstep of the arcades,
yeah.
huge popular games. So that was the ones he gravitated towards. So playing that was great fun. It was visually stunning and to the point of being arcade perfect, if a word existed at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was exciting. And Space Harrier was the same. It was arcade, felt arcade perfect. Virtua Fighter was very impressive on the 32X. It showed what the 32X could do. And then Virtua Racing Deluxe is very impressive on the 32X as well. And we mentioned Star Wars Arcade as well.
Yeah.
But it also did 2D ones very well. I mean, Mortal Kombat 2 was pretty much arcade perfect.
Would have avoided that like the plague.
Yeah.
but that's fine.
NBA Jam Tournament Edition was brilliant.
Sounds shit.
Yeah, no, you didn't get on with it when an arcade club. Then there was Primal Rage and WWF WrestleMania, the arcade game. Yeah. I mean, they were all. I mean, Star Wars Arcade was brilliant and things, but of course, with all of these, everyone we mentioned there were better versions on the Sega Saturn.
Yeah,
It was great for the time. Apart from Star Wars Arcade, that's the one game I think there where it just never came across. And then in terms of original games, you had BC Racer, which was Core's lazy attempt. I don't rate it as a game at all, of doing Mario Kart, but with Chuck Rock characters.
Yeah.
But of course, you only really got 2 recognisable characters, and it's like random dinosaur. It just isn't a very good 3D engine. It doesn't play very well. Then you had Blackthorn. That is really good.
Superb game.
Yeah, done by Blizzard, who of course better known today of their World of Warcraft and all of that. But yeah, the 32X version is quite a pretty update of it. Then you had Brutal Above the Claw. Now that's a sequel to Brutal Paws of Fury that only appeared on the 32X, that I believe. So that's That's quite a good one. Do you ever play that sort of
No, I've not played that.
Okay, I mean it's not great as a fighters, but you're fighting as animals basically. Charlie had a go on that one. He quite liked it, but then he loves Kung Fu Panda, so he was like, "Oh, animals fighting! I'm in." Then you had Dark Side, which is another space shooter, not as good. I definitely chose the best one for tonight with Stellar Assault, but similar concept. Doom that you mentioned before, very good port, but then you play on PC these days.
You do.
Motocross Champion, Pitfall, the main adventure. They're not really doing anything better. An interesting one is Star Trek Starfleet Academy, the Starship Bridge Simulator. If you love your Star Trek, it's quite a unique thing. It lets you simulate controlling starships, Starship Enterprises type things, but goes in. It is like a simulator, so it's an interesting one. Not really one that I've ever particularly been drawn to. And then finally, you had T-Mech, which is another mechanized fighter, so you'd love that. Yeah, it's not as good as Metalhead, so Kingy, look elsewhere. And then you had, well, we knew it in Europe as Mother Base, but it's known in North America as Zaxxon Mother Base 2000. And in Japan, the original name is Para Squad. So really what I'm telling you is it's not a Zaxxon sequel. It's a random sort of like an isometric-y type shooter, slanted shooter, like but in 3D, and it's not very good, to be honest. I don't rate Zaxxon Mother Base. I think it just lives. People like it because of the name.
Yeah.
And then that was, well, the only other one that you had was Sagakushi 4, which was like a RPG.
Yeah.
Then you had all the sports titles. I'm not going to go through all of those, but your FIFAs and all of these things. In my mind, they didn't really offer anything new. There were no particular standouts per se. But then that's because we don't really like sport games that much, do we?
No, not at all, no.
And then the other thing worth noting as well with the Sega 32X is that you could combine Sega CD games where they would actually give enhanced visuals. You could buy a 32X Mega CD or Sega CD version of the game, and they did Night Trap, Corpse, Killer, Fahrenheit, Supreme Warrior, and Surgical Strike. I mean, to be honest, these are games of their time, really. They're all quite cheesy and not that much gameplay, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But amazingly, and that's why I thought it was worth covering it all, that is every single... We've now covered every single 32X game.
No more future episodes.
Yeah. Well, it just...
Never say never.
Never say never. To be honest, we definitely... I think played the cream of the interesting, because and everybody knows Afterburner, and to be honest, these days you would play it on the Sega Saturn if you're going to play a home port, or you play it on the actual arcade, because we live in this wonderful world where you can go to MAME and play the arcade original. So why would you? The only one, as I mentioned, that is probably unique with the arcade one, the Star Wars arcade by Sega actually has a 32X mode, and it adds different ships, and you can be pilot and gunner and just gunner, so it gives you options and it improves the visuals over the arcade original because it's quite an early title. So that's probably the only one that I would say that gives you something new and different to the arcade. But we'd already covered that in pretty much with the arcade version in our Star Wars episode way back when.
God, that's gone back a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts? I mean, have you been converted across to the 32X? Did you enjoy? Yeah, sounds like you enjoy most of the games.
I always had a kind of respect for it. It was a bit of a niche thing. My mate always raved on about it, but he being the big Sega fanboy. But like any system, if the right team are there and the right, focus is there to create a decent game, you will get a decent game on it. I mean, it's a nice bit of hardware, there's no denying that. I mean, it's interesting that you don't get, not that I've ever seen any homebrew. Every other system seems to get a homebrew game written for it. Have you ever seen any for this that people have developed for it at all?
No, and I keep holding out as well. Like with the EverDrives, the ones that you plug in,
Yeah.
because I do want to buy the one that they've done, the Pro version, which has the FPGA of the Mega CD built in. But I don't understand why they don't put in as well 32X as well as the Sega, because to cut out the thing that always puts me off the 32X, and it always has, is the nest of wires. It's just so ugly it is Frankenstein's monster when you've plugged in all of these things and cables everywhere. And you can improve things a little bit by the time you can buy modern cables that are, say, splitters, so at least it's just one plug, unlike these horrible big breeze blocks that take two plug slots. So, a four-way genuinely was not enough. If you've got like a all-in-a-line plug, it's not enough, because you can't plug all three in if you've got a Mega CD 32. It's terrible design. It really is.
Yeah, there's no denying that.
And things have come along since which improves it. But to be honest, emulation is so good on the 32X that do you really need the real hardware? Unlike something like the Sega Saturn or some of the others, where sometimes you notice and you say, there are elements where you realise you're playing an emulation, but to be honest, Mega Drive and 32X is so solid.
Yeah.
And PCs are so good that you don't really notice that you're not playing on real hardware.
No, it depends on how much depth you're wanting to get out of the game. If you just want to tap in and get some exposure to it. I mean, if you're hardcore and a devout collector, that's a different thing altogether. But if you just want some experience from the console, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, the emulation is pretty much bang on, as you said.
I sold my 32X a long time ago. I picked it up as an oddity. I just never wanted it plugged in, because it just made the Mega Drive look so ugly. And as interesting as the games are, there's not enough to justify all that ugliness. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because really, of all the games, you cut away the arcade ports, maybe Star Wars Arcade, plus the great ones that we mentioned here. There isn't, and maybe the Star Trek Starfleet Academy is an interesting one, and Blackthorn, but then Blackthorn. To be honest, actually, with Blackthorn, the 32X version, I should note actually. There's that Blizzard arcade collection that you can buy on the modern consoles.
Never even seen that. No, I didn't know.
Oh, that's really good. Just as another spin-off as what we do. There's a really good compilation, well worth getting in the sale. It's usually a little bit overpriced when it's full price. But basically, it's the Blizzard arcade collection. Why they called it the arcade collection? Because none of them are arcade games. But it does have all the versions, including the 32X version of Blackthorn.
Okay.
And it has, it's got rock and roll racing, but they've also done a version. What I love with them is they've done like modern remasters. So like with rock and roll racing, that fantastic isometric racing game. They've done it with real CD track. You can play the originals on the various platforms, but you can also play the version with real music, which is kind of cool. So you can play the real sort of rock and roll tunes. Which was the only thing that was a bit of a nightmare was that I've tried to record the Blizzard Arcade collection for our video one time.
Okay.
But of course, when you try and show Rock and Roll Racing, the remaster version, it flagged everywhere, but and I couldn't release it. So it was a wasted video in the end. So, but yeah, no, it's but that collection's quite cool,
Right.
And it's also got Lost Vikings as well, because they also did Lost Vikings. So no, but I think I'm with you. I think the 32X is an interesting machine. I think it was a misstep. This was the beginning of the end of Sega. They started to make bad calls on things. They should have just concentrated on the Sega Saturn and gone all in. This was the point. In the era of the Mega Drive, they could do no wrong, and then they started doing all these extras, and it just cut away at their relevance and confused the market, to be honest. And it pissed. One of the reasons the Sega Saturn did so poorly, and there was lots of reasons, but one of the reasons was because they screwed up with the 32X and the Mega CD really had such short life cycles. There was a lot of people out of pocket, and retailers out of pocket, and they just didn't have the confidence at that point with the Sega Saturn. There was just too much in the market at the same time, and too much stuff that went on super sale really quick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I get that.
But anyway, it's been a great show.
No, I've enjoyed that. It's been really good.
Yeah, so I hope everyone enjoyed, and please, give these games a go. Certainly the Tempo and Stellar Assault. I think you'd really
all of them. Play them all.
Play them all. Yeah, come join us on this voyage of discovery. It's what it's all about. And let us know, as always, on Discord, or however you want to reach out to us on Twitter or whatever, or X. I can never get used to the term X.
It'll always be Twitter, won't it?
It'll always be Twitter. I don't know, just a narcissist that he is of changing it. But I think we'd love to hear, as always, what you think of these games, and what ones you recommend. What ones do you think you would have chosen as your 6 interesting games to play on the 32X? Fantastic. Well, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, keep it retro.
Bye-bye.